YouTubers, family and friends, we're back on the road. We've been driving for about 3 hours, coming back home from Milligan City. We got our gold sale done, and now we're heading back home. Just the weather's getting better. I can see some blue sky up there now finally. There's some of the rice fields here, lush green rice fields along the way there off to the right, with the mountains in the background there. And it's the same on the other side of the road here.
This is Molavi.
This is Molavi?
Molavi place.
Oh, okay. Molavi, it's about halfway on the journey to the house there, but this is a real wide area of the road, nice 4-lane, but this is how people drive. They're just back and forth. You know, I'm way on the other lane right now, right? And then here we got a PNP stop, like a checkpoint. There's several checkpoints here and there. See they're PNP, different places here. They'll try to, you know, they stop motorcycles mostly because motorcycles, you know, they can't afford licenses and license plates and stuff, most of the people. So they, you know, those are mostly people in violation of that kind of stuff. So we've been stopped, I don't know, several times on checkpoints. Sometimes they ask for your license, sometimes they ask for registration, but most of the time they just want to see who you are and they just say hello. What is it? Mayo Buntag. That's good morning in Visaya, and most of the time I forget how to pronounce it. It's kind of a hard one. But they usually just, you know, smile, just a short greeting, let you through. A lot of times they just want to take a look at your face. Most of the time, because I'm an American, especially if I say Moyam Bontag or something in Visaya, they just let you right through and they smile because, you know, they know we're friendly and we can speak English, and they can mostly speak English too, but they like when you're trying to learn their language, the Filipinos, which I don't blame them. It's their country. We as foreigners should be learning their language the best that we can, or when we get an opportunity. Just like if I was in the US, I'd want Mexicans or foreigners to try to speak English to me. Same thing, right? So I mean, we're all human beings just trying to get along on this earth the best we can without killing each other or doing wrong to each other. So that's the goal, especially as Christians. We try to do the best we can to, you know, get along with our fellow humans, have a somewhat harmonious humanity. I don't know what this guy's doing here. I think he missed his turn or something. Oh, there's people that stop right in front of you, so it stops people on. This is the main highway too, and you get people that they'll just stop right in the middle of the highway for whatever reason. And just a ways back before I started videoing, there was a truck ahead of us with lots of bags on it, right? All of a sudden, bam, here comes a bag dropping onto the highway, you know, just probably 50 feet ahead of me. I had to swerve a little bit, but not too bad. I try not to tailgate, and that's one good reason why you don't tailgate. Some of these loads, they don't strap them down well at all, and there'll be stuff falling off. And then, one dump truck before that, there's tons of rocks just falling off his truck onto the road, bouncing up. So you have to back way off, you know, stuff like that. It's Wild West, seriously. I mean, and it used to be a lot worse, but it's Wild West in the Philippines. Anything goes. I mean, the things you see on the road will blow your mind sometimes of how dangerous. I mean, a lot of these families, they'll be 4, 5, 6 people on a motorcycle. I shit you not. And you know, they'll be like this with an infant in their hands, and there'll be 5 others on the motorcycle. I mean, it's crazy sometimes, but you see it all the time. That's just another reason why too. I mean, they're like bees buzzing around you, these motorcycles. They'll back and forth trying to pass each side. You know, that's why I try to drive a little slower and just take your time. There's nothing, you know, it's very rare that you're in a hurry. You should be in a hurry anyway, so try to, you know, just have great view. And really, you got to be watching your mirrors all the time, because a motorcycle will come up beside you, or even a fast car from behind you, and you won't have a chance. And the next thing you know, they'll be blowing your doors off, going right by you, right? I mean, real close a lot of times. So you just got to be careful what you're doing on the roads. Try not to go too fast. Usually I average between 40 kilometers per hour and 80. That's majority of my speed on the roads. There's really no speed limit also, and there's no like highway patrol. There's just PNP in different communities along the roadway, right? And PNP is Philippines National Police, and they don't do traffic. Very, very rare they'll do a traffic anything, unless there's like a bad accident. The PNP will get involved, especially if there's, you know, fatalities or injuries to people. They'll get involved, but other than that, they don't do anything traffic. So, you know, which really, I love it, because compared to the U.S., oh my God, you do anything wrong and they're on you. The police there, or the state troopers, or the sheriffs. I mean, there's so many law enforcement in the U.S. They're on you. They don't have nothing to do except for harass you and every little tiny thing that there is on the book. So, you know, they get their quotas. They have quotas of how many people they should pull over and give tickets to every month and all this. I mean, it's a police state. The U.S. has become definitely a police state. Compared to the Philippines, the PNP, there's the nicest, like, guy next door, just like policemen used to be in the U.S. Like your neighbor, and he's out there just trying to help you in any way he can to make any situation safer, or, you know, to give you directions. Or, I mean, it's awesome in the Philippines, because it's literally 50 to 100 years earlier. I'm going to pass this guy here. Fish carrier, big huge truck. So yeah, it's literally 50 to 100 years earlier in time in the Philippines, especially when you get out in the rural areas, you know. And Mindanao is the furthest island away from the island of Luzon, where Manila, the capital, is, right? And all the presidents, since their independence and became an independent state, all the past presidents has been from the island of Luzon, or maybe one other island, but never from Mindanao until Duterte, which was like 7 years ago. And the presidents here are 6-year terms, not 4-year like it is in the U.S. So during that Duterte's 6-year term, first president ever in the history of the country, being from the biggest island of Mindanao, furthest to the south of all the other islands, he spent billions and billions and billions of infrastructure improvements, and especially the roadways. So the roadways are like a dream compared to when I first come to the Philippines 8 years ago. I mean, it took me 3 times as long to get from point A to point B, and there's massive ruts, and your vehicle is just beat to shit. I mean, bad, right? Most people back then just took the bus, but I mean, it was hours, right? Just to get anywhere. And there'd be projects. The corruption was so bad back then before the Dirt Day that they'd start a bridge project, and 15 years later the bridge project was still, they were still working on it. That's how bad the corruption used to be. When Duterte took over, bam, 6 years that he was in office, the whole island of Mindanao got massive road improvements, a lot of places 4-lane highways, a lot of areas. Like this one here, this is still a 2-lane, right? Which there's probably, I'd say still 50% of the roadways are just 2-lane, but it's way greatly improved from what it used to be. So a lot of new vehicles on the road. And then we stayed at a hotel that we always stay in Iligan City overnight, and the owner's daughter is the manager of the hotel, and actually she has a citizenship now in Canada. I guess she did for quite a while, but she came back for a while in the Philippines to run the hotel for a while, and she's now this summer gonna go back to Canada. And she was trying to sell her brand new SUV, you know, it's like a Toyota Fortuner, you know, that kind of a vehicle. Looked brand new, maybe a couple years old. She's trying to sell it, right? But no one wants to buy. It's the economy all over the world really right now is way down. It's not the money that used to be flowing like, you know, milk and honey for these past 20 years. It's really gone down, and because they're, in my opinion, the central banks of the world are trying to crash the economy to get us into CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, right? And just make the money even worse than it is right now. But I'm going to slow it down a little bit. There's a guy trying to pass me on the left here. Looks like it's military. Yeah, it's a military Jeep. So yeah, there's a lot of military around too. I probably passed a half a dozen military Jeeps or military trucks carrying like a squad of guys around, different assignments. There's not a ton of military, but way more military here compared to what you'd ever see in the U.S., at least what I ever seen there. But anyways, those are just some of the things, and just to give you a clue of what it's like here in the Philippines. But what I was saying is that she's trying to sell her car, and no, she can't sell her car unless you put the price way low. And that's the same thing with land or houses here. I mean, it's way hit and miss, and you aren't going to be able to sell anything for what you'd say call market value. And there's no scamming through realtors here, which is a huge scam in the U.S. It's a whole thing is a scam. How much money the brokers and the realtors make off of people's lifetime savings of putting their equity into their house and their land in the U.S., and how these realtors and real estate brokers rip these people off, you know, the tune of 3 to 6% at least of what the value's worth, and they're the group that makes all these prices skyrocket and inflate everything to a ridiculous level. And it's just a huge scam, and they're starting to catch on in the US now of how big that whole real estate realtor broker scam is. But here it's not like that in the Philippines. Usually the only way you're going to sell land or sell houses or new cars, anything that you think is worth, you know, big money, that like what you did to pay for it, you're not going to do it. The biggest scam here, in my opinion, is financing on vehicles and motorcycles. Huge. You're paying 30, 40, 50% financing on these vehicles that you're getting, or motorcycles in the Philippines. That, in my opinion, is the biggest scam here for as far as buying something. But Yeah, that's why you always got to have a savings. If you have a health emergency, medical emergency, anything like that, you have to have a health savings of, I would say, minimum 500,000 pesos, but it's better to have a couple million. I'd say the average should be 1 million pesos, which is approximately 20,000 US. Just the medical savings. You don't need insurance here because half the time the hospitals aren't going to take insurance anyways. And there's what's called PhilHealth, which Filipinos can get that. Like my wife could get that right now, but it's the whole thing, as far as insurance goes, in my opinion, is a scam. So best thing to do is just have a medical savings and be disciplined. And that's the way to go by far. By far. So there's another military checkpoint right here that we just went through, and they're all over the place, but most of the time they're not even manned, or you can't even see the military guy there. You just drive right through. During the COVID time, there was several, especially at the borders of the provinces. So if you're going through a province border, they had strict military stopping everybody. You know, you had to show ID and all that. Plus, you had to show that you've been immunized or tested for COVID. You had to show the antigen test results being negative. You had to have all that like show your papers, that kind of thing. It was way strict. So, but I still traveled. My wife and I still traveled here and there during COVID. Not much, but a couple times we had to travel. And then not only having the antigen test negative papers you had to show, you also had to have authorization from your municipality, right? What did they call that, hon? LGN, yeah, local government, something like that. Approval for you to travel. I mean, it was insane. So one time we got hung up at a checkpoint that we had to call the mayor of our municipality and have on the phone her to give the military at the checkpoint the okay for us to go through, and to prove that we lived there and we were just going back home. So yeah, and your antigen test back then only lasted, what, 3 days? Yeah, it was only good for 3 days. So if you went somewhere, it took longer than 3 days to get back home, then you'd have to get another antigen test wherever you're going. So it was a complete cluster cluck. So yeah, I'm glad that's over with, and I hope that never happens again, but you never know these days. But now that all the truth is out about all that stuff, I don't think people will ever comply again. And if the ones that do comply are just complete mindless slaves. So I hope people will learn their lesson of all that crap that happened last time. Just like all the people getting through the border at the US, right? It's like they're getting through the border all over the place, not just Texas. And now that their focus is on Texas, they're just going through in Arizona and New Mexico and California. I mean, there's all kinds of video coming out of their, like, boats coming off the shore of California. They'll beach and they'll just scatter all the foreigners, the legal aliens coming in. And they're not just from Mexico, they're from all over the place, including Europe, Eastern Europe, and China. And I mean, it's crazy where all the places that these illegal immigrants are coming from. And it's an actual invasion going on. Thousands per day coming across the border all over the place. And the U.S. government ain't doing nothing about it. It's all by design. And a lot of these people are probably sleeper cells, covert military sleeper cells. They'll have a plan. Someday they'll get their plan and start blowing shit up or something. Who knows, right? So that's the kind of stuff that's going to happen if there's lockdowns again. I'm almost sure of it. No matter where it is in the world, people will, like here in the Philippines, they'll go through the jungle or whatever it takes to get around the checkpoints or whatever it takes, right? Because the whole thing before was you got to show your papers, this, you got to pay in an antigen test. It was like $20. No, it was closer to $30, between 20 and $30 for the antigen test per person, and that's big money for the poor people of the Philippines to pay every time they just want to do any kind of travel. I mean, and there's so many people that went through a death situation. Person in their family died during that time, and they couldn't even be at their bedside before they passed away because of all these restrictions, right? It was bad. So I hope that never happens again. Anyways, I'm going to let you guys go here. It's one thing is the weather is better, but the clouds are starting to come back in here. We're in the mountainous area now, and this is kind of where they sell lots of corn. They grow up here on these mountainsides. We many times stopped at these roadsides and bought some sweet corn. And there's a sweet corn place right there. You want to buy some, huh? See, there's another checkpoint right here too. So I'm gonna let you guys go. We're not gonna buy corn this time. We don't really are being on the carnivore diet. Our corn is kind of out of the picture of our diet. It is very delicious.
Just
but
buy a little, because the bata, Leonardo love it.
yeah,
Just few.
we'll see if we've seen it at our stand
Just
up
like
here.
20 pieces or something.
But I'm gonna let you guys go, and it's starting to be a long one anyway. So y'all take care. Love you. God bless, and just be careful if you're road tripping. Always have a little extra money. Have a protection. Have a Filipina or a Filipino with you. That's going to get you out of lots of jams. I wouldn't recommend as a foreigner you go traveling around alone. I've done it. And I even did it one time during the pandemic time, and only because my wife couldn't be with me at the time for some reason. I don't know what happened, but it's always good to have a bodyguard, which is always a person from that country with you that knows the language, can speak the language, knows the customs, knows what's going on to keep you from accidentally getting in any trouble. I did the same thing when I went to Moscow a few years back in 2019, just to visit on a stopover. I was going from New York, Moscow, and then I was meeting my wife in Dubai. And so I spent the day in Moscow, and I hired an interpreter there, and she went on the train with me to Red Square and the Kremlin and all that stuff. And she knew the language, she knew what to do, which was perfect. It worked out perfect. And I gave her $100 US after, as a tip when we were done, because it's customary to always tip on, especially interpreters. So anyways, I recommend that highly in the Philippines. So just be careful and take care, y'all. Love you. Bye-bye.